Hello and welcome to the local campaign, helping voters make an informed choice for the upcoming municipal election. I'm your host and moderator, Dan POLISCHUK. Tonight we have the Kitchener Ward 9 debate. Kitchener's 9th Ward is located in the central north portion of the city. It is bordered by King Street to the east, the City of Waterloo to the north, Belmont Avenue and Lakeside Park to the east, and Highway 8 to the south. Incumbent Frank Etherington is not seeking re-election, and there are 5 candidates vying for this open council seat. In fact, now there are only 4. They are Melissa BOWMAN, Phil MOLTO, Tia Driver, and Debbie Chapman. Originally the 5th, Steve Stroak was and will be also on the ballot, but has decided to withdraw his nomination. Now, speaking order was drawn before the debate, so with their opening remarks, here is Melissa BOWMAN.
Thank you to Rogers for hosting this event, and to all of you for watching. I moved to this community almost 25 years ago and quickly made it my home. It provided me with a university degree, a fulfilling 20-year career in education, family, and so many opportunities to serve the community. I've served several terms on 2 city committees and on the board of the Victoria Park Neighborhood Association, leading as its president for the last 5 years. These experiences led me to seek the role of councillor to offer what I have to continue building this great city and Ward 9. I believe I bring a strong blend of experience working with neighborhoods, working with city staff and councillors, and leadership in volunteer roles at my church and on city committees. With all of this comes an energetic and optimistic spirit of cooperation and collaboration, ready to tackle key issues facing Kitchener and Ward 9. I want to see greater transportation choice through an improved walking and cycling network, thoughtful development that increases the housing supply and provides a range of pricing options, and the creation of a Citizens Housing Committee to focus on bringing more and varied housing to our ward, as well as regular and more creative communication between the city and its residents. Kitchener and Ward 9 face challenges, but many of these challenges are rooted in our vibrant downtown renewal, which is attracting more jobs, residents, artists, and cultural events. Kitchener's deeply rooted spirit of innovation and creativity makes me optimistic about what I have to offer to help continue with this renewal while effectively addressing the concerns that we face. So thank you for watching this broadcast to learn more about my vision of a city that is more inclusive, engaged, and supported. Thank you.
Mr. Phil MOLTO.
Good evening. My name is Philip MOLTO, candidate for Ward 9. I would like to start my 2 minutes by thanking you, the viewers, for supporting this Rogers program. Local media is a vital part of the community. In municipal politics, voters such as yourselves have research to do. Unlike provincial or federal politics, your candidates do not represent a party or its platform or policies. We all appear before you on our own individual credibility. I believe a good councillor should possess experience, varied skill sets, character strength, and the ability to truly listen to the person in front of them or both sides in a council session. I've worked many jobs and volunteered in areas that have helped me develop strengths in those areas. To get to know me, here is some background. My wife and I have been married for 30 years and we raised 3 children together. We raised our family here in Ward 9. It is the only home our family has known. Our 3 went to daycare, preschool, dance, music, elementary, and high school, all in Ward 9. I've worked in many areas. I grew up in a large family with a landscape construction business, so I started work at age 13 and never stopped. When I finished high school, I decided to chart my own course in life. With my construction and subdivision experience, I was keen to learn about urban planning, but I was also a keen photographer. The doors for photography and journalism opened first, so I proceeded down that path. I spent over 25 years in TV media. I covered many events and news stories, including city council sessions in Guelph, Cambridge, Waterloo, and here in Kitchener. After 30 years, I've seen many changes, but I also witnessed the behind-the-scene politics that brought us from 1986 when I first started in the media. I've seen a lot of changes, but understanding the process gave me a keen insight. Along with TV news experience, I've been a union vice president in a large company and helped run small non-unionized businesses too. I've sold cameras, hauled boats, and operated forklifts. I hosted my own national TV show and edited a national magazine. The extra media experience furthered my skills in communication and working with industry partners to achieve the best result for all parties in a shared endeavor. I have developed listening and negotiating skills.
Thank you, Mr. MOLTO. Ms. Tia Driver.
Hi, my name is Tia Rebecca Driver, and I'd like to thank everyone here at Rogers for producing these debates. We've enjoyed watching them at home, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy watching this one. I'm a candidate because Ward 9 deserves a councillor that they can trust to make decisions based on facts and will act on the residents' behalfs. Unlike the other candidates, I have the education, the experience, and the dedication to be your ward councillor. My education includes a Bachelor's of Arts Honours Environmental Studies in Environmental Studies with Legal Studies option and a minor in philosophy from Wilfrid Laurier University. And I'm completing a master's degree in Environmental Studies in Sustainability Management and a master's degree in Climate Change at the University of Waterloo. For the past 7 years, I've been a leader in our community. I currently vice chair the Environmental Advisory Committee at the City of Kitchener, and I co-chair the Laurel Creek Citizens Working Group at the City of Waterloo. I represent over 30,000 individuals at the University of Waterloo as their senator and governor at the institution. As well, 11 months ago, I had the honor of attending the United Nations Climate Change Convention in Bonn, Germany, as a delegate on behalf of the University of Waterloo. I truly believe that in order for Kitchener to flourish, we need a councillor who embodies accountability, accessibility, and sustainability. For me, accountability means listening to your concerns and acting on them. I am accountable to you. Accountability means accessibility means eliminating barriers, improving services, and improving the communication between the city and its residents. I will not leave you in the dark. Finally, to be sustainable, we must account for the social, economic, and environmental implications of the decisions made by City Council. I will help you build a better future for Kitchener. I have the know-how and the background to make substantial changes for Ward 9. I don't profess to be anything I am not. I don't make false promises, and I don't lie about my position. Consider what I've accomplished and imagine what I can do for you. This is our ward. Let me be your voice. Thank you.
And Ms. Debbie Chapman.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to Rogers for having us. As a resident of Ward 9 and as a candidate, I take civic responsibility very seriously. I've lived in Kitchener for 44 years and have been involved in local grassroots politics for over 26 years. I'm a political scientist and part-time professor at Laurier. I have taught courses in everything from urban politics to global governance. As a researcher, I believe we can examine models from around the world to learn more effective ways to tackle the issues that we struggle with here. My business background comes from being employed as operations manager for 10 years at a gift and craft wholesale company. The third area of my life that qualifies me to represent you is my community work. I was president of the Cherry Park Neighbourhood Association for 5 years. During this time, I helped transform what was thought of as a crime-ridden neighbourhood into a desirable area. Through our teamwork efforts, we now have 3 community gardens, an annual cleanup barbecue, corn boil, and the Cherry Festival. We have worked with people from many different ethnic and socioeconomic backgrounds and types of ability. I continue to serve on the executive of the association and on the Cherry Festival organizing committee. But my concerns about Ward 9 go beyond the neighbourhood association boundaries. I have also sat on 2 City of Kitchener community advisory committees where we work together to develop ways to enhance community participation and safety in our streets. These experiences have taught me the value of collaboration. As someone who has worked in the private and public sectors, is now a part-time professor at Laurier, and who values research, I approach issues holistically, which means that I understand that behind every decision a councillor makes, there are people that matter. I am convinced that if we put community first, Kitchener will be that city of possibilities. Thank you.
With that last opening remark, we now begin the start of the question and answer portion of our debate. And for that, we go to Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce Vice President Art Sinclair.
The recent provincial election focused on two-way all-day GO train service, which is widely supported throughout the region of Waterloo. What other transit and transportation projects should the cities and the region of Waterloo be working on?
And on that question, we'll begin with yourself, Mr. Malto.
It's a great question because it's all tied in together. The province and the municipalities, and within the municipalities, how do we get around? How do we get from the suburbs into Ward 9? How do we hook up with the GO train and get ourselves to Toronto? So that's where the LRT and the public transit comes into play, plus other things such as bike paths and proper pedestrian paths. We have to get people from the outer areas of the suburbs into the core, hook up to the new transit area, hit to the GO Transit, and into Toronto. So it's a very multiple stage and also at multiple levels, multiple levels of the province, the region, and then within each ward. Everything has to be coordinated so people can get to the next part of the jump, to the next part of the jump. We have to get them from their homes to the bike path or the pedestrian sidewalk to a bus shelter that's properly shoveled, get onto a bus to the LRT for north-south here, and then get onto the GO Transit to get to Toronto. So everybody's got to buy in, and there has to be a system where there's not one person stopping the system or putting a block in it. Everything has to flow from beginning to end. So multiple tiers have to work together so everybody can get on board and get to where they need to be.
And Ms. Driver, what other projects should be a priority when it comes to transportation?
Yes, the train is a very important aspect for Kitchener because not only do we have our residents getting to Toronto, we're going to have Toronto residents coming to Kitchener, which is going to improve the tourism of our city and make it more viable for individuals who work in Toronto. However, like was previously mentioned, in order for us to have a viable system, we need to make sure that there's a minimum biking grid in place in Kitchener so that people who choose to use other forms of transportation are able to do so in an effective and safe manner. As well, we need to ensure that there's also better transit within our region. Currently, we have the ION system, but the ION system does not connect us to Cambridge or Guelph at this time. So we need to push through the second phase of this project and ensure that we have light rail transit to the other major cities within the region itself. I would push, if elected, to have an extensive reevaluation of the ION system and ensure that when it goes to Cambridge and to Guelph, that all the residents in those cities would also be able to easily access that system and get onto the all-day GO Transit system that we're pushing for with Toronto. And also, I would maybe like to see that be pushed down to London and to Hamilton as well, because those are other areas that lots of people would like to come to Kitchener, or people in Kitchener would like to commute to, because I know they have jobs that way. Thank you.
And what projects would you highlight as a priority in terms of transportation in the city?
Yes, so I think that I agree with what's been said so far, that it's a multi-government initiative that we have to look at here. Collaboration of the municipal government, regional government, and the provincial government. And I think an integrated transportation system would accommodate cyclists, pedestrians, bus users, and of course the LRT. A couple things I've heard while canvassing the last little while is the concerns about where the GO train siding is on Park Street. The noise that's generated by the GO trains as they back up and move forward and accommodate themselves. I would like to see the siding move to the Shirley Street location or to Baden. I would also like to see in the buses that go to the suburban areas, in order to make the LRT really effective, we've got to have a greater frequency of buses going from the LRT out into the suburban areas if we really are serious about getting people out of their vehicles. So I guess that's it.
Okay. And Ms. Bowman, your thoughts on the evolution of transportation in the city? How can we go further it?
Well, like many residents in Ward 9 and in our region, I use a variety of methods to get around. I drive and use transit, but mostly I rely on cycling and walking. And I believe that we need a protected and connected network. I'm hearing from many residents who are interested in cycling, but they're concerned. They don't feel like it's safe yet. One resident told me that they live only a couple of kilometers from where they work and would love to cycle, but the routes are too busy and the roads don't feel safe. I've been a part of some other discussions on this topic as well. I hosted a book club on the topic, on the book Building the Cycling City, as well as attending a meetup with a Waterloo candidate on this topic as well. I support the Cycle Waterloo Region Pledge that suggests that we need consistent year-to-year funding for our cycling infrastructure. And we also need something as simple as better signage on our trails so we know how the trails connect to one another. I want to ensure that we also have a connected transit network, especially once the ION is up and running. And you know, sometimes this issue becomes about cars versus bikes. And it shouldn't be that. What it needs to be about is building complete streets that work well for everyone. Jane Jacobs has said that the point of cities is multiplicity of choice, and I believe that applies to transportation issues as well. We need to offer a variety of ways for people to move easily and comfortably around our region.
So from transportation, we're going to shift our gaze to crime in the city. And what strategy should the next council, in your perspective, employ in order to address crime in Kitchener and the downtown core specifically? And Ms. Driver, the first response to you.
Yes, I've talked to many residents, and crime and neighborhood security has been a major concern for them, specifically in the Victoria Park area. Now, I've also heard from other residents saying that Victoria Park is very safe. So I think we need to have more consultation with the community regarding what exactly needs to happen in the downtown core in order for residents to feel safe to walk in the streets at night. I've talked to many bylaw officers, and they're very friendly and approachable individuals. So I don't think the issue is in the training of the bylaw officers, but perhaps we need more bylaw officers. And we also need more police. We need police who are, on the beat, so to speak. We need police who are on bicycles, and we need to make sure that, residents feel comfortable approaching officers if there is a concern. And to build on that, we also need to make sure that when an incident is reported, that residents feel that they're being heard by either bylaw, if it's a bylaw offense, or the police department if it's something very serious. I would work with residents and with the other bylaw and the regional police to make sure that there is better communication with the residents regarding these issues, as well as making sure that if there's, say, streetscape improvements such as security lighting, that's very easy to put up. You walk around at night, you walk by a centered light, oh, it shines, and it's like the 4th of July. You can see everything that's going on. Those are some simple solutions we can implement in the downtown core and in the laneways where we know that there are large reports of, questionable incidences going on. I would work with residents to see if that's maybe an easy option we can use. And again, I really would work with them to act on their concerns in regards to the safety concerns that they are stressing. Thanks.
Crime in the downtown core. How should council address this, Ms. Bowman?
I think crime in the downtown core.
Ms. Chapman. My apologies.
I didn't hear it. I didn't catch what you said. It doesn't matter. Okay. I think that there's to understand crime in the downtown core, we have to think about things like homelessness. In the region right now, there are over 300 chronically homeless people. We've got over 4,100 people on the affordable housing waiting list, families on the affordable housing waiting list in the region. And we've got an opioid crisis, according to the public health officials. So we've got, I don't think it's just about crime. I think there are so many other factors that we have to be able to address in order to understand why there's crime in the first place. So if people don't have a home, if they don't have employment, as we know, the employment these days has come to be in precarious employment without benefits, poor wages, and oftentimes not more than a contract for a couple months. So these are things that we have to think about in order to be able to reduce crime. I don't think it's just about policing, although policing certainly is a component of it, but there have to be ways that we can find to engage people in society in a productive way. In Iceland, they have had a very serious problem with drug and alcohol addiction and homelessness, and I think there are things we can learn from their model. One of the things that I think is useful is to bring together, if we want to target youth in particular, bring together youth with school professionals, with the police, the public health care professionals, addiction counselors, and just talk with youth and say, okay, what do you do? How do you engage what do you engage in your spare time? And what things would the city need to be able to provide to you in order to be more productive or feel more part of the larger society? So I think it's a big problem we've got, and I don't think there's one solution. We've got the safe consumption sites.
Quick moment to wrap up that answer.
We have the safe consumption sites that are not a solution, but certainly an initiative that's being worked on.
Okay, Ms. Bowman, your thoughts on this topic?
Thanks for the question. Well, I have personal experience with this, as our home was broken into just about 2 years ago. And this individual committed break-ins throughout Kitchener-Waterloo area and was feeding a drug habit. The police mentioned that this is quite indicative of the crime problem as a whole, that it's a few repeat offenders who commit the majority of the crimes. In our case, the person broke into over 30 homes in just over a month. Fortunately, he was caught. In this time, though, I've had some great conversations with Ward 9 residents about possible solutions on how to deal with these issues. I know that some neighborhoods have created an email list to communicate with each other, just to keep an eye on what's happening in the neighborhood. And I think this shows the effectiveness of engaged neighbors. It's also important to think about how we're designing cities and how to do that well. And we can use examples such as the crime prevention through environmental design guidelines to help us think about the best ways to design trails and sidewalks and cities as a whole. We also want to focus on creating active and vibrant areas as that increases safety. We are lucky to have a wonderful asset in the Waterloo Region Crime Prevention Council, which they offer unique ways to address the root causes of crime in our city. So elected officials need to connect neighbors to their neighborhood association, help them organize, connect them to police or other community organizations and resources as appropriate. Thank you.
And what strategy would you like to see council employ in order to address crime in Kitchener and the downtown core, Mr. Malto?
Crime in the center and the core is a problem. Unfortunately, I think a few of us here have had break-ins in our houses over the past 10, 15 years, and sometimes it's youth, sometimes it's people breaking in just to get whatever they can. Sometimes it's a crime for drug money, sometimes it's a homeless issue. There's various reasons for it. When you talk to the police just say we can't just lock them out and then send them out again the next day. What do we do there? You have to address the actual problem. What is the problem that creates the crime? Is it a drug problem? Is it a need for drug money? Is it a homelessness? Is it a no money, no job? Is it a teenager kicked out, has no alternative but to do B&Es to generate some kind of revenue? So what we have to do is actually go back to what is the source of the problem. The old days of just putting somebody in the slammer, if you will, for the night doesn't fix the problem. We have to actually address that problem. So let's go back and let's look at the drug problem. Let's look what other countries have done well. You look at places like England and Portugal who now do injections to try and control the drug problem. Instead of labeling somebody and sweeping the problem under the carpet, let's send them to a proper pharmacy with a safe injection, enough dose to keep them functioning for the day, and then we can give them treatment. So let's not just push the drug problems out the side, because that's creating a lot of the crime because of the need for drug money. Let's look at the youth problem. If their youth are doing B&Es, why are we kicking them out of school? Maybe we should be addressing the problem in the school rather than just expelling them. So there's it's a multifaceted problem. There are different ways of approaching the different aspects of the actual crime problem. For us, working with police, again, we've said it before at our different meetings, really you need to work with police to get them on the street, get them visible, and open up that door. Let's not put them in cruisers that create a barrier. Let's get them on bicycles, let's get them on foot. Let's get them socializing with the residents and even the problem people, if you will, the people who are committing crime. Let's get them in with the police. So let's look at it. Let's address the problems at the bare root. Let's address the drug problem, the homeless problem, the poverty problem, and the young offender problem. Then we can address the B&E problem in the center of the city, in the core and in Ward 9.
And regarding the opioid epidemic, would you support the development of a safe injection site in Kitchener? And if so, do you see your ward specifically as an appropriate location? And Ms. Chapman, we'll begin with yourself.
Yes, I would totally support a safe injection site in the city and multiple in the city if that's what's required. We had 65 deaths in the region last year. And as a city councillor, I do not want to be responsible for any more. So I would never suggest that we not continue on with ensuring that this one aspect of prevention or support be there. In order for it to be effective, though, I think it first of all must remain in public hands. The methadone clinics, I was working with neighbors in my neighborhood a few years ago when they brought in the first methadone clinic in Kitchener, and it's in private hands. And the problem that arose, and there was actually an article in the paper on this today, but I just wanted to point out the problem that some of the immediate neighbors had with the methadone clinic, and that was that the owners were not responsive to their concerns, whether it was loitering of the people using the facilities or broken fences, needles in their backyards, etc. So I think if it remains in the public hands, we have a better chance of controlling what goes on beyond those doors of the clinic. Wraparound services must be properly funded, and by that I'm including police services, drug addiction services, public health services of all sorts, and if not properly funded, I think we're going to have problems. I think we have to think of it as just one tool that can be used to help with the opioid crisis that we have here. And I think it's important that the residents in the area of the clinic be at the table discussing their concerns and that their concerns be taken seriously. Sometimes simply by talking about the concerns that they have and engaging with the professionals, a better understanding of the needs can be met.
And Ms. Bowman, would you support the development of a safe injection site in Kitchener? And if so, again, do you see your ward specifically as an appropriate location?
I agree. I consider safe consumption sites as one tool to deal with a broad, complex issue. Thus, I would support such a site in Kitchener. This is an issue of health, and offering supports can mean the difference between life and death. The evidence suggests that these services save lives. Harm reduction, such as safe consumption sites, is one of the pillars of the Waterloo Region Integrated Drug Strategy, along with prevention, recovery and rehabilitation, and enforcement and justice. So while I do believe that safe consumption sites too are necessary, we must also provide supports on the other three pillars as well. Now, location is always going to be a challenge, as few residents will want this in their own neighborhood. The process to identify an appropriate location requires constant communication with the neighborhood and residents. And this communication can't stop once a location is secured. It must be continued and ongoing as we follow up with the neighborhood about its impact. To that end, the Victoria Park Neighborhood Association has ongoing conversations with city staff. We've also connected with and learned from social service organizations dealing with these challenges. These conversations and meetings allow us to learn more about the issue and identify possible next steps to deal with drug use in and around the park and throughout the city. Also, I believe in a supported city that empowers residents with tools, resources, and information to more fully participate in the community. The councillor's role is to consider different perspectives on issues that can seem singular and work as a team to identify creative solutions. As councillor, I would work to provide supports and resources to all members of our community as we work together on this challenging and complex issue.
And Mr. Molto, your thoughts on the development of a safe injection site in Kitchener? Do you support it, and would Ward 9 be an appropriate location for it?
First of all, this past couple of weeks while out campaigning, I have to give the highest level of respect to the people of Ward 9. The change in attitude towards the drug problem is incredible. When you go back 10 or 20 years and the idea was just, let's ignore these people. If you walk fast enough, you can walk past the drug problem. Today, people are looking at, how do we help these people? These aren't drug addicts or meth heads, they're people, and how do we help them? If we look at the way other cities have addressed this problem with safe injection sites, years ago the problem was hygiene. Dirty needles, dirty situations, dirty living conditions. They were dying from the actual cleanliness or lack of cleanliness in those sites. Years ago, the numbers are staggering. Back in 1990 in Portugal, they were losing 360 in a year. Then when they cleaned up everything and gave safe injection sites, they dropped that to 26. That's an incredible number. And the filth. San Francisco spent $70 million a year just on cleaning up the drug areas from the human feces and urine in those areas. It was that bad. They were budgeting $70 million a year. They cleaned it up in the morning. That night, it would all start over again. The next day, they clean it all up. So let's really address this problem. And how do we do that? Well, safe injection sites, because first of all, you have cleanliness, which was a problem in hygiene for years. Now we've got the second problem, and that is a lot of these drugs are laced. If you have a safe injection site where they actually monitor and see what the people are using, we're now going to help them and save them from the dangerous drugs that they're injecting, stuff they may not know is actually in there. So we can clean up the hygiene, we can clean up actually what they're taking, and then we can get them for counseling. So again, I'm overwhelmed by the warmth that the people of Ward 9 have shown. It's a whole different approach to this issue. They're not looking at these people, the drug users. They may have looked rough in the past, but they look at them as a fellow human being, a fellow resident of Ward 9. They want to reach out and help. And yes, let's bring those sites into Ward 9. Let's do it properly, and let's give them the treatment and the proper clinical arena to do this in. Thank you.
And Ms. Driver, are you on the same wavelength with your opponents here in terms of bringing a safe injection site into the city of Kitchener? And in terms of the location, where would you deem as most appropriate? Is Ward 9 the location for it?
I'm slightly different in my opinions with my fellow colleagues here. This is a regional issue. This is being put on by regional health. So as your councillor, I would be responsible for addressing your concerns and taking them to the regional health board and working with the board to determine an accurate location. I know there have been 2 locations slated for Kitchener, and there have been lots of contentious issues with residents about those facilities. Some residents have stated that they haven't had adequate communication with the city regarding the selection process, or even just how the city hasn't even given them enough information as to how they're going to feel safe in the neighborhood once they put these injection sites in. And I don't think that's adequate. I think there needs to be more communication and more consultation with residents before even the final sites are selected. Now, there was a petition submitted in August to City Council of 200 residents from the Victoria Park neighborhood who are very concerned with what is happening in the park. They're concerned about the opioid crisis. They're concerned about the open drug use. And to me, it felt like council fluffed their concerns off and hasn't done anything to respond to that petition. That's 200 people who are concerned. I know there's more in Ward 9. There are 4 pillars like previously mentioned, but SIS sites or even SCS sites only address the harm reduction. They do not assess the prevention, the treatment, the rehabilitation, the justice, or even the enforcement. We need to start looking at the other 3 pillars as well. Let's not just say safe injection sites are, the end-all be-all. They are an okay idea, I believe, but we need more consultation with the residents, and we also need to have a plan for better implementation of the other 3 pillars. Thank you.
Another pertinent topic in Ward 9 is obviously healthcare, because it does contain 2 of the region's hospitals. In light of that fact, what strategy should the next council follow in order to continue attracting doctors to the city of Kitchener? And Ms. Bowman, first response to you.
Sure. Ward 9 is a unique ward in our city because, as you mentioned, it does have both of those hospitals right located within our boundaries. And I think we have seen an improvement in the crisis that we were facing with doctor shortage a number of years ago, and there have been some steps taken to address that. My general philosophy is that there are a lot of people who are working on the ground on these types of issues, and I think partnerships are key for this type of thing. So through partnerships and conversations with people who are more connected to this issue, I think that's how I would address it, having those conversations, seeking their input, and following through on their suggestions. Thank you.
And how would you attract doctors to the city, Mr. Malto?
This has been done several times in the past where they've tried to promote the area to doctors, because for a lot of people they didn't realize how great this area was, this region, and the double cities of Kitchener and Waterloo. So promotional videos were done and sent out to hospital, to graduating doctors. Say, look at Waterloo region have. We have 2 hospitals. We've got all these clinics, and at that time, we weren't as developed as we are now. Now we've changed a lot since that time when they first started recruiting doctors. Now you look at the growth of St. Mary's and the General Hospital. It's amazing how much they've grown and how much they have to offer doctors for their job and for their lifestyle. You look at the region, how much it's changed. We've got better bike paths. We've got the light rail transit. The downtowns are growing and vibrant again. We've got a great arts culture. We've got so much to offer them, both for their lifestyle and for their job. So we can give them the tools they need to do their job. We've got specialized clinics. We've got growing hospitals. We've got growing support from the communities. We've got all support for them to do their job. We've also got a great community for them to live in, to raise their families. So we've got both things to offer them. We've got the hospitals they need, and we've got a great community for them to live in and raise a family.
And how would you continue attracting doctors to the city, Ms. Driver?
Thank you. This is a very interesting question. We have some of the world's best hospitals in this city. St. Mary's Hospital specializes in cardiac, I believe. Yes, cardiac. Affairs as well. So we need to start, promoting the specializations of the hospitals within the city. I suggest building partnerships with universities such as McMaster, because they have training for specialized doctors who would be interested in the Grand River Hospital or St. Mary's Hospital. As well, we need to ensure that there's better accessibility via public transit to these hospitals. I can't tell you how many times I live by St. Mary's Hospital, so I use the bus routes quite frequently in the winter, and I can't tell you the number of times I've gotten off the bus and landed in knee-deep snow because the bus stops were not cleared. We need to make sure that all hospitals have the accessibility they need, so doctors who choose not to take their car and wants to use active transit has the ability to do so. As well, we need to ensure that there's more affordable housing in this city. I can't fathom how expensive it is to do a doctorship now, but I'm sure people coming out of universities have quite a lot of debt and may not be able to afford a house right away. But they shouldn't be left out of the job market. I feel that those individuals should come to Kitchener, and as a result, Kitchener Council needs to promote more affordable housing through either, making sure there's more partnership grant programs like what's happening at the regional level with the Affordable Suites Initiative, or we need to maybe push for Section 37 of the Planning Act and ensure that when we have new developments within the city, they are accounting for units that are affordable housing, or even better yet, enact on the inclusionary zoning bylaws, which is a new provincial regulation that came out in April. All of these initiatives will help us build a more affordable community for young doctors who want to get a start in their journey on their medical expertise. Thank you.
On attracting doctors to Kitchener, last response to you, Ms. Chapman.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because we think of the healthcare system as something that's driven by the provinces. However, I think that the Chamber of Commerce has done a great job in trying to attract new doctors. And in fact, they have a database that we can go to find out which doctors are taking new patients. So I think initiatives of that sort are very useful. I think if we want to bring doctors to this area, we've got to have to find ways to ensure that they not just come to work here, but they stay here and that their whole lives get satisfied with what we have to offer here in the city. So arts and culture is a big drawing card for many professionals, whether they be academics or doctors or new entrepreneurs in the tech industry. We've got to be able to compete with the type of performances and artists that Toronto has, because many of these graduates are going to come from places like Toronto. We don't have specialty medical schools here in Kitchener that will bring doctors here to stay here. We've got to draw from other larger teaching hospitals in London, Hamilton, and Toronto. More outdoor patios in the core is also an attraction that will help to keep medical doctors in the area. So make this a city, a place to work and play, not just to come, do their job and leave. And I think we have a tall order here in order to meet the needs of medical doctors and professionals all around. And I think the development projects that we're experiencing right now are a good start, and I think they can be built on also.
All right. Now, stemming from the Love My Hood initiative, what kind of new community programming would you like to see in Ward 9 to encourage citizen engagement? And Mr. Molto, first response to you.
Well, the Love My Hood has been a huge success, and it's great to see so many people out and enjoying the community in so many ways. There's so much in Ward 9. There's so much activities both in the neighborhood communities. Every weekend in the summer especially, there's something happening everywhere. So the expanding of Love My Hood is just get people out there. I think a big part of that is how do we know what's out there? And kudos to the City of Kitchener. On their website, they've always publishing what's happening. I get it on my Facebook feed. I get it on my Twitter feed. There's always something happening. So a big part of it is letting people know what goes on, because some people, they go by a coffee shop and they'll see a pamphlet in the window, but if they don't go to that shop, they're not going to see it. So a big part is letting people know what's out there and make these events accessible and oftentimes free and funded. So if there's stuff in the parks or stuff at a community center, let's open the doors for everybody so they know they can just drop in at any point and share in the wonderful arts and culture. We have so much stuff, both in physical activities, arts and culture, recreation. There's so much to do in Ward 9, so we need to get out there and share it. And again, big part of that is getting the information out. The City of Kitchener does a great job, but I think we can do it in other ways with other social media and get the information out there so more people can enjoy all there is to offer, and so they can truly enjoy their neighborhoods of Ward 9.
Ms. Driver, any new initiatives that you can pinpoint that would be valuable to encourage citizen engagement in the ward?
Yeah, no. The ward has quite a number of heritage interpretations. So there's walking tours of downtown where you can, take a walking tour and learn about the historical aspects of the city. And there are also, tours at the Joseph Snyder House and many other districts in the city. However, I think we need to shift away from heritage and also promote the natural heritage of the city. We need to ensure that there are nature interpretations. One of the things I brought up at my work at the city on the Environmental Advisory Committee was having interpretive signages in the parks. So in Lakeside Park and Victoria Park, these signs would highlight, the uniqueness of, say, the park itself, or maybe perhaps why we have a certain tree species here as opposed to another tree species, or even like, why do ducks migrate? Simple questions like that will help families, engage in with the parks themselves and learn more about the natural landscape within the city. I'm a big believer in getting kids out and showing them exactly what lives in the natural environment. At the Laurel Creek group, we go out, we grab benthic invertebrates. So these are aquatic insects. We bring them in and we teach kids about what lives in the water. And through that, we can build an appreciation for why it's important to, make sure our streams are clear of pollution, make sure that we are planting vegetation that is, valuable for the animals that live in the area. By bringing these activities to Kitchener, I think we'll build greater appreciation for the natural environment and complement the heritage interpretation that is already occurring within the ward. Thanks.
And Ms. Chapman, new community programming that you'd like to see take action in Ward 9?
Yeah, we've in the Cherry Park Neighborhood Association, we've done a lot to try and build community engagement. And in fact, one of our biggest successes has been the Cherry Festival. It started out with a small group of people in the entrance to the park and maybe 20, 30 participants. We now have over 5,000 people that come into the park. So this is just one thing that goes beyond Love My Hood. In fact, it way predated Love My Hood, so it doesn't carry that designation. But one of the things that I would like to see is a thing called participatory budgeting. And this began in 1989 in Porto Alegre, and it's been adopted and taken up by countries around the world, including in Canada, in Guelph, in Toronto, in New York City. Cities have taken to separating a portion of their budget for citizens to spend. So I would like to see 10% of the operating budget set aside for participatory budgeting. And the way it would work is people would, in small little neighborhoods, can come up with projects that they would like to see in their neighborhoods. And it could be something like building a water pad, or it could be a crosswalk, or it could be, people are creative, so they'll come up with their own ideas. They would cost it out, and then these would be looked at by the citizens themselves and come up with the final group of projects that the money would be spent on. The city claims to be doing participatory budgeting, but the way it was done last year is the city decided on what parks needed renovating. I would like to see the city give up that power and let the residents decide. Maybe they're happy to have a renovated park, but maybe there's something else they'd like to see the money spent on. And what I think this can do is give citizens a degree of power, and we can see projects realized that really are people-driven and not based on a project that the city has in their 10-year forecast.
And Ms. Bowman, what would new community programming look like to you in Ward 9?
Sure. Well, I was fortunate enough to be part of the neighborhood strategy project team for 2 years that helped develop the Love My Hood strategy. And I truly believe that it serves as a new model for better engagement, one that is more resident-led and city-supported, and one that is also very reminiscent of other participatory budgeting models. The city is doing more with this as well. Things like the workshop on wheels, sidewalk meetings, and even coffee chats around the new urban design guidelines. As a Downtown Neighborhood and Alliance program coordinator, I saw all sorts of great stuff happening as far as community programming, things like free child and parent cooking classes. We've just started a new dodgeball program, and things like youth board game nights led by youth. I think it's important that we look at accessible and affordable community space as well, and groups like Marit Collective and the Social Planning Committee of Waterloo Region is looking into that as well. Neighborhood associations have free access to those spaces, but it's not available to everybody. And as councillor, I would definitely encourage more Love My Hood activities, things like traffic calming, community gardens, and neighborhood markets.
We'll extend the discussion about traffic and more specifically on cycling. And in your perspective, is the City of Kitchener, have they done enough to make Kitchener a more cycling-friendly city? And if so, what would you do to maybe improve that area, making Kitchener a cycling-friendly city? And Ms. Driver, we'll begin with yourself.
I've talked to many cyclists as I've been walking around, knocking on your neighbors' doors, and one concern they always bring up is the safety and the accessibility of bike lanes. I've been told many times that people have been biking along, all of a sudden the bike lane ends. They have nowhere to go other than out into open traffic. I don't think that's acceptable for a city to have sort of lanes like that, because it's really, it causes incidents and it causes accidents. Another thing I've been told is that there needs to be a minimum grid, and I agree. As part of the minimum grid, we are going to ensure that all the bike lanes are connected. As well, we're going to ensure that there's going to be better separation between lanes. There's certain sections and corridors of the city that deserve to have separated bike lanes, and I agree that they need to be looked into. We need to launch a study to ensure that, there's a certain, of course, there's going to be enough bikers to support the use of having a separated bike lane, but we also need to engage with the residents too and see if there's any other ideas they can think of about the bike lanes. We have the Iron Horse Trail. Everyone loves to use it, but sometimes it's faster to go down King Street, unfortunately, to get to point A, point B. So we need to engage with the cycling community and ensure that their concerns are also heard as well, outside of the segregated bike lanes and the minimum grid. Thank you.
So is Kitchener a cycling-friendly city, Ms. Chapman, or how can it improve on that
Yes,
respect?
I think they've come a long way. I'm a cyclist myself. I often cycle to work. I do believe that more work needs to be done. There are some areas of the city, especially now with the new LRT infrastructure, that you come to an intersection and it's unclear as a cyclist, do I go onto the sidewalk or do I go on the right-hand side of the road, or what space is for me? There are a lot of what I call pseudo bike lanes that aren't proper width, standard widths for a bike lane. I agree with the Cycle Waterloo Region proposal to come up with a minimum grid that would connect the trails and the existing bike lanes and ensure that you could get from one place to another place in the city or in the region safely. I think that if we look at the case in Ottawa, their segregated bike lanes resulted in an increase of 240% increase in ridership of cyclists. And if you look at the cycling that goes on in this city, it's certainly not something that catches your eye when you walk out on a summer day. Not to say that people don't bike, but it's if we had those segregated bike lanes, I think it could be draw more people into the streets. And I think the other thing that Cycle Waterloo Region has thought about very carefully is coming up with those segregated bike lanes like a temporary fix. So it wouldn't have to be a permanent fix, which would be far more expensive, but you could put flower pots or pylons to separate the cycling lane from the rest of the traffic. And I think that's a great idea, because then if that road you decide, well, maybe that didn't work so well, we can move it to another area, those changes could be made. So I think there are a lot of creative ways that this can be done. And I think, why not? It's one of the reasons we brought LRT in was to get people out of their cars. So part of that is getting people onto their bikes.
So does anything need to be done to that point to make Kitchener a more cycling-friendly city, Ms. Bowman? And if so, what?
Absolutely. I think there's still lots of work to be done. As I've mentioned, I am a cyclist. That is my main mode of transportation. And I think we need a protected, connected network. I've had a little bit of fun while campaigning on this topic as well. As I mentioned, I did run a book club on the topic, but I've also run something online that I called Citizens on Bikes Getting Coffee, where I highlighted different residents of Ward 9 who are cyclists, and they talked to us about the highlights of cycling in the area, as well as the challenges and things that they think need to happen next. And time again, the idea of a protected, connected network comes up. Now, I would say the issue I probably most often hear from residents is around traffic concerns, whether that's traffic speed or volume, or even just simply crossing the road safely. I've been part of a team who's looking at a traffic calming project on West Ave as part of the Love My Hood strategy, because people are trying to get safely from one side of a trail to the other side of the trail, and West Ave traffic is very fast. I've been supportive of the new flexi pole bollards that have been placed in the center of the road in a few areas around the ward, as I think that helps to slow down traffic. And we also need to look at enforcement as a way to help slow traffic down, to make users of the road feel safer. So an important part that sometimes gets overlooked is the importance of needing to examine the bigger picture, like street design, and following guidelines put out by organizations such as Vision Zero. So we know what good cycling infrastructure looks like, thanks to organizations like Cycle Waterloo Region and TriTag, and now we need to partner with them and actually implement it and make it happen.
And Mr. Molto, last response to you on the topic. does Kitchener need to do more, and what can it do to become a more cycling-friendly city?
I think it's doing a great job. I think a big part of that is people love to cycle. Back in the 70s, bicycling was everywhere. There was movies about it. Everybody seemed to ride a bicycle. In the 90s and into the early 2000s, we got away from it, and now the cycling industry is taking off. You see people biking out in the country. You see them, in town. Everyone wants to get back on their bicycle. So how do we do that and make it this city friendly? Well, we've done a lot, but there's a lot more yet to do. This past June, we were fortunate enough to visit our son who's in Vancouver, and they've done a great system out there with cycling. They've taken it off the main streets. So rather than having cyclists and cars fight over the main streets, put the cyclists on the side streets, make them a bunch of cul-de-sacs, and it's basically a great bike path system without completely closing off the side streets. They get the bicycles off the main streets. It was a great system. Here in town, we have a problem where the region and the city don't always work together, so the streets don't always match up. A regional road and a municipal road have different widths, so a bike lane will be going along great, and then it disappears. So those two levels really have to work together. And the whole corridor, if you will, of cycling. I'm involved in recreational snowmobiling, and there's 45,000 kilometers of trails. I can go snowmobile from just outside of town here in Drumble or Maryhill. I can ride my snowmobile all the way to Ottawa or all the way to Thunder Bay on trails that are marked, staked, there's signs everywhere, and I don't get lost. Yet in the city, I get down there and I have to look at Nyberg Street or Sydney Street, and I have to look to how do I get to Fairview Mall? It's not clearly marked. So we've got bike paths that are started, we've got bike routes that are great, we need better signage, and we really need to connect those areas. But we also have to work with residents. Again, down in the Sydney Nyberg, the residents spoke up about how they wanted those bike paths and lanes put in through their streets. So as keen as we are about cyclists, we also have to remember about the individual residents in those neighborhoods and make sure that we're doing it in conjunction with what they feel is best for their neighborhood. So cycling is great. So many people are buying into it. It's a great system. We've got great bike paths, but we can improve with more trees, better signage, wider trails in some areas, more trees, and better lighting. So cycling is really taking off in Kitchener, but it's going to go a lot further. We just got to manage it properly with the region, the city, and all the enthusiasts.
Well, we've just about run out of time, and it's unfortunate we've covered a lot of ground here, but we do have to move on to the closing remarks portion of tonight's debate. So to begin, each candidate will have 2 minutes to provide a closing remark, and we'll begin with the candidate, Ms. Debbie Chapman.
Okay. I'd like to thank the organizers of and the participants in this event. The city of possibilities that I envision is one that puts community first. It's a city where we have direct participation in the political process, a city where the needs of all the stakeholders are balanced, a city that invites people to leave their cars at home, a welcoming place to people of all walks of life. My top 3 priorities are increasing direct political participation by residents in the decision-making process, responsible sustainable development, including affordable housing, and free community space and access to fields for all community groups. We are living in a period of economic hardship, which has impacted the lives of many of us. There's a clear need for full-time job creation and an end to part-time precarious employment. As we move forward, we need to ensure that all sectors of society are included in our plan. My years of community work, problem solving, teamwork, and listening to people will help us through this difficult period and bring us nearer to that city of possibilities. As we lead into the final weeks of the campaign, I encourage you to ask yourself, first of all, which candidate has the most lived experience and knowledge of the city of Kitchener? Which candidate best understands the political process? Which one has worked with residents to solve real issues? And which one best represents your vision? I ask for your support on October 22nd, and so that together we can make a difference. Be that vote. And for more information, please visit my website at www.debbiechapman.ca. Thank you.
And candidate Ms. Tia Driver.
Yes. As a city, we have some tough challenges we're going to have to face in the next 4 years. But let's not forget there will be ample opportunities. You know, Kitchener has a very bright future, and it's a future of possibilities if we work together to disrupt the status quo. Together, we can build safer neighborhoods, promote accessible community services, provide affordable housing, and foster sustainability within our city. We've seen in every election that promises have been made, but those promises are not kept. The councillors elected do not have the education or the experience to make good on those promises. I don't make false promises. I don't lie about my position. I have the dedication, experience, and education to be your ward councillor. My education has been tailored in order to better understand policy development, Canadian law, and municipal governments. My leadership skills have been tested at the local and international level, and I am committed to this community, the community in which I was born and raised. I will be a councillor that embodies accessibility, accountability, and sustainability. I will be accountable to you and transparent in my decision making. As well, I assure that your interests will always come before mine. The issues discussed here tonight are just some of the problems facing our city. We've asked council, we've argued with council to address these problems. We've done everything, but yet our voice is still lost. Now we have a chance to send a message to the city. We cannot, we can tell them that we no longer accept the status quo and that our concerns will no longer be ignored. If you give me 30 minutes on October 22nd, I will give you 4 dedicated years as your ward councillor. This is our ward. Let me be your voice. You can learn more at driverward9.ca. Thank you.
In closing remarks from Mr. Phil Malto.
This has been a great session. I'd like to thank my fellow candidates. We've gotten to know each other the last few months, and they've all been very professional, very classy. It's been a very great campaign, very respectful. I'd like to thank them for what they've done in the last few months as we get to know each other. Moving forward in the next 4 years, there's going to be a lot of change in Kitchener, a lot of change in Ward 9. The city is moving up in the core, and as it trickles out into the suburbs areas of Ward 9, how do we handle that? Well, we have to make sure that everybody is on board. We have to make sure that as condos go up, we're not offending heritage. We have to make allowances for the growth that needs to take place. How do we improve our streams out through those areas? How do we preserve heritage? Heritage is more than just bricks and mortars. There's a huge smokestack behind the Lang factory. That's a reminder of the industrial heritage that people lived and worked here. That in 1914, there was people living in this town. 1930s through the Depressions, in the wartime area. In my neighborhood, we have wartime homes. 1950s was another booming era. There's eras and eras of history in our ward that we need to preserve, but we also have to look forward to the next 4 years. As the condos and apartments go up and get renovated, we have to make allowances for subsidized housing. We have to take care of the poor. We have to take care of the people with injection issues. We have to make sure that we've got bike paths so people can get around. We have to look into snow clearing to make sure everyone can get to the bus terminals, to get to the LRT, to get to their destination. There's a lot happening in 4 years, and I believe I'm that person. Because of my experience of living in the city, because of all that I've accomplished in my lifetime, I speak from my mind, I also speak from my heart. I'm very passionate. A lot of times when I'm speaking, I'm not speaking from notes, I'm speaking from little bullet points as I go because I'm listening. I'm passionate about the city, and I'm passionate about listening to you. When I've been out campaigning, it's really been interesting to listen to the diverse community that we have in Ward 9. As we'll go north, south, east, west, it's a great community. I'd like to represent you.
In closing remarks from Ms. Melissa Bowman.
My career in education has trained me to inform others, hear and respond to concerns, and resolve conflict. These are significant parts of a councillor's daily work. Knocking on thousands of doors while campaigning has informed me of many concerns facing Ward 9 residents. They've raised important issues such as transportation and traffic concerns, safe consumption sites, city engagement, and heritage, housing, and development issues. I've learned to listen to these diverse voices to better engage with residents and address their concerns. I've avoided the political temptation to promise everything to everyone, honestly addressing the competing sides of many issues. But I've also tried to avoid negativity and criticism of opposing arguments. I've developed strength of leadership to question and challenge, but with an openness, honesty, and willingness to seek consensus among diverse groups. This attitude and approach is needed to make the next City Council work effectively. I hope I earn your vote to be Ward 9's next councillor. I've thought carefully about the real issues facing Ward 9 and engaged with its residents, listening to their concerns and ideas. I'm encouraged and motivated by the city that I love, not for what is possible about it, but for what it has achieved and what it continues to accomplish, attracting diverse people, creative artists, and jobs and economic investment. I've campaigned on a positive vision for our ward and city, one where we focus on collaboration and cooperation, where we build upon the successes that we have seen, and where we work together to create a city that is more inclusive, engaged, and supported. Support that vision by voting on October 22nd for Melissa Bowman. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all Ward 9 candidates, and make sure to watch Rogers TV on the night of October the 22nd for up-to-the-minute local results. On behalf of producer David Aguirre, floor director Sean Fafaro, and myself, Dan Polishchuk, along with the volunteer crew here at Rogers TV, thanks so much for watching.